We're going to move on to engaging with DOD partners, and we're going to have Debra talk about her experience in Wichita.
Well, thank you again for an opportunity to share a bit more about what we're doing at the National Defense Prototyping Center. And I'd like to echo what some of our other awardees have said, and we really do greatly appreciate the funding that has been put forward, the development of the program, and the execution of the program on behalf of the Department of Defense in support of the warfighter. So when we crafted our particular element here, and our topic that we're focused on in this section is engaging with the DOD partners. And so when we did that, that's one of the reasons why we looked at the data, and we had the pie charts that we had earlier about what do we make and who do we make it for and who buys it. And so we were looking for what they needed next. What kind of support, what kind of capability do they need next? And one of the areas that was of greatest need was materials, staff, especially staff that had technical knowledge, of course, but security clearances. And then, of course, they needed an R&D facility that fell under a secure heading. There were numerous manufacturers in our area who are engaged with classified manufacturing, and taking those that line that is working on a contract out of service to do R&D was cost prohibitive. And if we're going to robustly support, we need to have both. We need to have a industrial commons that basically falls under a classified clearance, as well as productive technologies, and advancing those productive technologies in the manners that we were just talking about regarding qualitative and quantitative measures that benefit the warfighter and the Department of Defense. So we have identified these three things that we are predominantly focused on in ours. And the vast majority of our funding is going to be setting up this prototyping facility on behalf of the manufacturers who have classified clearances in our area, classified manufacturing programs in our region. And so these equipment are very expensive in order to establish with the NDI elements, as well non-destructive inspection elements, as well as the autoclaves that are necessary to create and to test these high temperature material elements to get the right compression and process shear elements, interlaminar shear, and various other kinds of physics-based dynamics that enable these hypersonic and high temperature applications to be safe and operable. And so those are wherein our program was engaged with the DOD partners on behalf of the Department of Defense. We have a long legacy of this. Back in the day, 30, 40 years ago, NASA was having difficulty with sole source, single point of failure with some of their inputs to the space elements. And we know that this is also true of many of the defense elements. And so they set forth a program called AGATE. And some of our leaders here at the university were involved in that particular program, which basically democratized some of those new materials so that they could be procured, managed, operated in more than one facility who had deep pockets in order to develop those particular materials characterization and processing elements. That program has evolved over the years to be called NCAMP, and the NCAMP data moves into the Composite Material Handbook that is available to all DOD and commercial applications. So in that, we were hearing that industry was needing two important elements. One was more data, more equivalency reports associated with oxy. And so we're working on that particular high temperature material, very good at supersonic and hypersonic applications. less expensive things that you can use on subsonic elements. The other one that we were hearing was based on 3D print. And so these AGATE and CAMP composite material handbooks, those are certifications of material are also moving into 3D print. The first one that was done recently was Autumn 9085. We're in process with the FAA and American Makes and others to be working on titanium, aluminum, vanadium. And for that particular material to be cost effective for production, these materials characterizations have to be established and published, as well as to look at how many times, this is powder bed application, how many times the powder can be reused. So there is an initial study being done by FAA and American Makes. I think DOD also has some money in that as well, that is being operationalized here at the university. But we know that even if we do original material and one reuse, it still is not yet cost effective for the DOD partners to process those elements to get the benefits that are necessary for cost savings associated with sustaining the fleet. So we have, using this particular set of funding here, looking at reuse 2, 3, and 4. If those powders can be used even with knockdowns repeatedly, we then very much would be parallel to other kinds of manufacturing processes, and we'll be able to get what has been promised as reduced tech count and light weighting elements that we've all been waiting to see happen with 3D print. So those are some of the things that we did with the money that isn't going toward the prototyping facility, and all this information will definitely feed into that particular research element that will happen in subsequent years beyond the term of this initial award. Second thing that we've been leaning in on is the idea of critical skills that are necessary in the hypersonic material element. These elements that we've been, these two compounds that we've been talking about, the oxy, as well as the titanium and aluminum vanadium, Type 4 for short. In addition to that, the skills needed for that, these emerging workers and existing workers need to have classified clearances. So we had initially set out, if you can read the teeny tiny print on here, to establish a number of those elements. We were looking to get 15 student interns through the process during the term of this. We currently have 29 in the pipeline. Some of these students have previous clearances through their ROTC engagement. And so we'll be getting them a secondary one associated with materials. We'll make them highly sought after as they graduate for not only having important DOD related skills that are important to programs of record for warfighter materials, but it also means that they've got all that preliminary work and experience working on classified elements. We do anticipate the 29 is very nice. Probably not everyone will attain that during that particular period, but we're getting them down the runway on that particular piece. But we do expect that the majority of them will achieve that, and more will be coming into the pipeline in subsequent months as we move along. So know that we're running short on time. We're past time by a minute, so I'm going to stop with that. Happy to answer questions. Many of you know me. Just feel free for you to reach out if there's anything I can help you with or can share.
Thank you, Debra. I appreciate your speeding that up a little for us. That's helpful. And so we do have one more presenter. Thank you.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Yes. So our understanding was to share some best practices on how to engage DOD partners. To start off, we again, when we were scoping everything, we had one-on-one conversations for over a while and went through several rabbit holes, identifying all of our different ecosystem, defense ecosystem institution in the state of California. So having one-on-one conversations with what are your needs, what do you need, what are your issues, where can we help? That's one key best practice and key takeaway. And then I'll pass it on to Jo Marie. And then if you want to pass it on to Lisa for maybe a quick key takeaway on some best practices for engaging DoD partners.
Hi, everyone. I love being on the end of everything like this. But I'm Jo Marie Diamond with the San Diego Regional East County EDC, and we are a partner on CADENCE. I wanted to underscore that one of the ways, besides the state of California and our individual partners having relationships with these DOD anchor institutions, we also put a lot of work into nurturing relationships with industry and trade associations like CCOE, which is focused on cyber, AI, 5G, those kinds of things, but also with NDIA. I heard them mentioned again. They're an amazing asset. That entity was formed so DOD could tell industry what it needs, and so they're in constant conversation with them. You have to foster those sorts of relationships of trust, and then in the way an ecosystem works, just like it works in nature, is that one relationship leads to another referral, and that's how you establish. And you have to be able to follow through. If you say you're going to help DOD with something, then you have to follow through. You have to maintain constant communication, and you have to be able to have discrete outcomes that have come out of a particular engagement. I could talk about a few efforts that we've done, but Lisa's story is so good, and we're so pressed for time. I want to make sure she gets the time. I'm happy to add additional information if you wish.
Thank you, Jo Marie. Well, I think since we get to wrap this up for everybody today, I think the bottom line here is really about creating ecosystems. We've here in the San Diego region have a tremendous footprint of Department of Defense and have really created a great partnership between them, industry and academia, to look at challenges and potentially source opportunities collaboratively. And so one of the ways that we've done this locally is to be able to really work directly with DoD partners. As I mentioned, we work very closely with NAVWAR to identify their challenges, to be able to host these types of programs with partners like the National Security Innovation Network, with NavalX and so forth, to be able to really source innovation solutions, and then also through the commercial industry as well, to be able to identify them and then bring these to market quicker, both from a practical to tactical perspective, as well as the reverse, from tactical to practical. And so I think ultimately it's forming these ecosystems and looking at this as an economic development exercise, in addition to looking at this in a way that supports not just DoD's initiatives, but the larger initiatives for the entire industry. And so we are more than happy to share all of the different programs and processes that we've created here with CADENCE across the state of California, and ways that we might be able to enhance templates across. And we look forward to also working with all of you to be able to enhance ours. So with that, I turn it back to Eileen and to Jo Marie.
We know we're short on time, so we ideally wanted to understand from everyone else how they engage and share best practices on engagement. But again, for us, it's just having a lot of conversations and partnering with them, learning what they need, learning what do our DoD partners need. Just last week, we were with the Space Force, and they said we need a lot of talent pipeline in artificial intelligence, cyber, and they gave us a list. And then we immediately connected them with our community colleges, and now they have a program, and they're going to try to get a pipeline into them. So it's leveraging your scopes of work to adapt to what your DoD partners need in your ecosystems is really, I think, the takeaway that we would love to share with you guys and learn maybe if there's any others from you guys. So, but Karen, we know we're short on time, so.
Well, I enjoyed this a lot. I think that we've learned a lot today. I think that it would be great to somehow collect up some of the courses, certifications, and internships into some kind of list, or so that people could see some of these outcomes and programs in the different states. I think there's probably a lot of overlap, but maybe I'm wrong about that. But I think that would be of interest, and maybe somehow we could collect that data. Thanks to everyone who participated today. It was a great event. We hope to do this again in the fall. We will send out a survey to find out what topics we can cover next time. And if you have any other ideas of how we can share best practices across this group of 11, and next year it'll be a bigger group of maybe 16. So we want to make this a better. And so if you could give us some ideas of how we could improve it, maybe we do some subgroups next year, breaking out the groups based on some of the topics or based on interest levels. So Thanks for your participation, and I invite anyone to ask any other questions before we wrap up.
I just want to say, like Karen, thank you so much for today. It's been really interesting hearing your stories. In addition to this, platform and our future events, we also want to encourage you to reach out to one another and ask questions and learn from one another. And we look forward to the next event, to putting together the next event as well. Thank you so much, everyone.